Good evening. This is the fourth and final reading of the 2025 Woodstock Mayapple Writers Retreat. And we are all poets this year. That's not always the case. We have been meeting since 2003 when we started in Saginaw, Michigan, under the heading the Rust Belt Rethke Writers Retreat. And then when we came here, we became the Woodstock Mayapple Writers Retreat, so we would have proper brand recognition. And our first reader tonight is Leslie Gerber. He was born in Brooklyn in 1943 and graduated from Brooklyn College with a degree in creative writing. And for 39 years, he ran a mail-order classical music business while writing thousands of music reviews and articles. In 1970, he moved to Ulster County, and he has lived here ever since. He began writing poetry in 1999 and is a proud member of the Goat Hill Poets, founded by Cheryl Rice and himself. He lives in Woodstock, New York with his, no, we do not have a dog Winnie anymore. He had his dog Winnie of blessed memory. I'm sorry to be using an old bio. And his books are The Lies of the Poets, The Edge of Sleep, and Losing Tara, all published by Post Traumatic Press, which is a Woodstock small press. And I will switch over everything that I need to switch over. Right. That's number one.
Are we on? I guess that'll hold a little bastards for tonight. Anybody know that line, Uncle Don? The most famous blooper in radio history. When I started writing poetry in midlife, I connected early on with one of the best poets I've ever known, James J. Clark, who was a mainstay of the local poetry culture for years. He became my mentor, and for the first few years that I was writing, he provided me with invaluable help. And the last time I heard him read was in this library. And so I decided to start off by reading one of his poems. The title poem from The Crow of the Moon. In from the sea, capitalizing on the way the wind is whipping things, this crow comes to my tent each evening like the wrong kind of bat. And I clamp myself in canvas, murdering my sleep with silences, but he's there come morning, hawked like a chancre on the lip of my tent, not wanting anything from me but silence. And I do. I keep my silences. Someday I hope I can do a reading of his poetry. I love him. When I do a reading, I like to read a couple of poems from each of my books, just in case anybody wants one. Yes, I have copies. So here are a couple of poems from my first book. This one is my daughter's favorite of my poems. It's called Chickens. Chickens born and chickens die. Clip their wings so they can't fly. Some we bake and some we fry. No reward up in the sky. No one cares how chickens feel as we eat our chicken meal. Don't believe their lives are real. Farmers hear their fear and pain as their blood flows down the drain. Seen before and see again. They can't use my gratitude. They don't crave my praise. All they want's a bit more food, a nice big yard to roam and brood, and a few more days. And I guess, since it's open to this page, I'll read the one on the opposite page called Theology. God gives us the ability to feel pain so that we can feel pain. Love is not the strongest feeling. Try making love to a willing goddess with your foot caught in a bear trap, or kissing someone who does not remember your name. God gives us life so we can fear death. God gives us hearing so we can shout. God gives us taste to appreciate bitterness. God gives us sight so we can try to duck his missiles. We have arms to throw, legs to escape, noses to bleed, genitals to confuse our boundaries, and children to remind us of our ignorance. God gives us God to explain what we can't explain, to assure we will never be satisfied. A brick falls from the wall of a tall building and lands on something. This book, The Edge of Sleep, was titled that way because these were all what I call my sleep poems. They're not from dreams, but they get written when I'm not completely awake. Sometimes waking up in the middle of the night, sometimes falling asleep, sometimes just waking up. Dad goes home. Dad is getting ready to drive home in his Lincoln Green Continental. He is glad to go. There is nobody here he likes, not even Irma the receptionist, whose eyeliner, when she winks at him, is the color of sin. But once he is on the road, he can push a button, and the voice of his mistress is in his ears, cushioned by velvet violins, singing of how she wants him, loves him, waits impatiently for his touch. She is the only one who does not hate him. All around him, angry cars resent the space he takes. Billboards shout at him about what they want him to buy. On Sunday, he will worship with his family at the mall, but the billboards will never be satisfied. Soon he will be home just in time for Mom to complain about the stopped-up sink, the kids' grades, and other cover stories for her discontent with the quality and frequency of her orgasms. He is sorry, a little, but watching baseball is so much easier. Experienced. He knew of her as a woman who had many lovers. When she led him to her bed, she said, "I will give you tonight more than any woman ever has. I will give you everything you have ever dreamed of and things you never dreamed." As she gently removed his shoes, she added, "Everything is yours. Every inch of skin, every thought, every touch. You will never forget this night." His clothes seemed to fall like flower petals as she said, "Women have always wanted something from you. We all do. But I have everything. Now all I want is your happiness. What do you want from me?" Despite her fingers, he told her the truth. "All I want," he said, "is the most peaceful sleep of my life, with you resting beside me, your arm around me." She gasped. "Oh, my darling," she said, "I have waited for this moment all my life. I am yours forever." "Good," he said. This book, Losing Tara, An Alzheimer's Journey, consists of poems that I wrote during my wife's long descent into Alzheimer's disease. I used to bring them into an Alzheimer's support group, and the leader of the group, Judith Bromley, told me that she thought that I ought to collect them and they would be useful for people going through the same experience. A Poem of Thanks. Today, when seeing your hair disheveled by neglect, recall seeing it disheveled by passion. Remembering endless drives to doctors, offices that held such hope. When I remember you getting better for a little while before plunging off the dock into brain-freezing water. When I again startled by that photo I put up on the wall of you in your glory, so intense it makes my eyes water, but even that doesn't make me take it down. Today, knowing that I must prevent dog food scattered on the kitchen floor, the TV remote in the garbage, the nightshirt over the coat, Even now, I want to bow before you, hold your hand to my heart, and thank you for thrilling me for so long with such generosity that your loss leaves me trying to breathe with only one lung and my throat obstructed by the growth of something dangerous. Erosion. You told me once soaking the porcelain lining of your antique bathtub would damage it. After every bath, you would wipe it carefully with your towel, a task now left to me, the one who remembers things. Strange to think that water hurt something meant to contain it, the way I, meant to contain your love, am now eroding. This poem is my biggest hit. It was published in the magazine Rattle. It's called Neglect. Already, still mourning, I have fed someone helpless and attended to the needs of a dog. But as I walked my little hobbling walk with her, I failed to worship the sky. As I ate precious cheese, I forgot to thank the cows, farmers, microbes who made it. The generous world grants me bounty beyond measure every day, yet I spend my time regretting my losses. A ship with paint cracking, neglecting to thank the ocean for its buoyancy. The rest of these poems are almost all going to be ones that I've worked on with my fellow poets during this session these past few days. And boy, what a trip that has been, and what a treat. This is actually a poem about my wife's illness, which is not in the book. I'm not sure why. Abandoned. Sitting blank-faced in the hospital recliner, are you relieved to escape the effort of saying yes or no, of walking, of picking up the spoon? Back home, my life is full of your chair, your favorite Mozart, your necklaces, visits from neighbors. I don't know how to do this, how to talk to all our relatives and friends and tell them you are breathing. Suddenly, you could not walk. Suddenly, you could not come home. The dogs might never see you again. Tomorrow, I will tell you the dogs are fine. A lie. Oh, this one my group didn't see, but it's my only sonnet, so I like to read it. It's called Octogenarian Manifesto. This morning, I refused to leave my bed. Comfort under comforter preferred to hostile weather that could strike me dead. But at last my better self demurred. While slowly going down the hazard stairs, defending with each step against the fall that true would break my neck, I was aware of how my nose is pulled by coffee's call. This aging body modifies the way I now must tiptoe through my mundane life. No longer can I strut about and play when every surface seems potential knife. Each day's a gamble, but so far the bet hasn't played against me yet. Midnight Among the Moles. This is a sleep poem. Tonight the moon is as thin as a slice of pie at the diet diner. Moles like to dance only when they can cast deep shadows. Those were the nights I filmed them for the midnight shows at St. Mark's Place. Moles thrive in carnival atmosphere, whole families frolicking in celebrations of disorder under the full moon. Tonight, I might as well have stayed in bed. That's how it is with my life. Few pleasant surprises. How much better it would be if I could tango with the moles. Leaving Philadelphia via Amtrak. Heaps of shattered stone, crumbling concrete, faded graffiti on bridge supports and walls, Many mysterious metal towers, huge drooping American flag, mural even larger with zoo animal cartoons. At last, trees, large abandoned houses, small occupied ones, large factory and small houses, all with broken windows. A truck in motion, parked cars, huge orange painted factory, empty. The first visible neighborhood, but the corner store is boarded up, and next comes a field of piled up junked cars. A church spire in the distance, up a hill, a water tower, eerie flashes from overhead electric lines. More junked cars which contemplate the distance to my country home. Outside. Last week, they auctioned off my ego at the Woodstock Library Fair. They got a good price for it, surplus egos being in short supply. I didn't want it anymore. I wanted to live outside my house, where grass is more luxurious than floors and nobody argues with me. Feeding myself out here has taken a lot of adaptation, like discovering which shrubs and mushrooms are safe. But I'm still breathing. Looking up at the sky becomes a thrilling experience when you can do it all day and all night. Lacking fur, and also knowledge of where to take shelter in the wild, leaves me like a naked mole rat above ground, doomed to freeze when winter sets in. But until then, I'm having the time of my life. And I'm going to end with a small group of love poems. Round. Round things remind me of you. Plums, pearls, cupcakes, your tasty shapes. So joyful to my eyes and my hands. I know I am not a robot made of metal. I am not harsh angles. I do not leave marks. But compared to you, I seem like a box of broken glass. So it always surprises me when you lie down next to me as though you belong there. Autumn love. In the full lifespan before we met, I learned to love you, never imagining that bird would crash into my window and the ground would shift beneath my feet. Stable was my middle name until my name began to splinter and my house fell into such disrepair it seemed no one would save it. Then you arrived with your toolbox of compassion and your textbooks of pleasure. These days I see the world differently, and our tomorrow might turn out better than yesterday. Her, a love story. Her voice doesn't remind me of anyone else's. We like to walk together, although she speeds me up. I doubt I could beat her at arm wrestling. We are not always in the same place at the same time, although it can be hard to tell. I love the wrinkles that tell me so much about her, as she seems content with mine. She can warm my toes before she even gets into bed. And this last one, brand new. On days like this, assessing my value against the outrageous demands of the age, I am worth a dime, maybe a quarter. But then the special signal of your phone text reminds me I am worth a barrel of quarters to someone. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Our next reader is Alison Koffler. who was the recipient of the Green Heron Poetry Award in 2011 and the 2016 winner of the Bronx Council on the Arts Brio Award for Poetry, having won it as well in 1993, 2000, and 2006. Her poems have been published in numerous publications and are included in A Slant of Light, Contemporary Women Writers of the Hudson Valley, Lake Light, 25 Years of Poetry and Prose by Bright Hill Poets and Writers, and Cap's Poetry 2020. She lives in Woodstock, New York, with her husband, the poet Dale Wise, and their dogs, Cole and Leaf. And she and Dale are co-founders of Post Traumatic Press. And let me get everything aimed at you.
Thank you for coming out, folks. You will meet Cole and Leaf later, the dogs. But I'm going to read a couple of poems that we workshopped this week, and I really thank Judy and Steve for their marvelous insights and, just other poems. So the first couple of poems I'm going to read are from a collection which is incomplete, and I'm thinking of it in my mind as City of Women. And they're kind of portraits of women in this imagined Bronx. And I am an ex-Bronx resident, probably around the 30s or 40s. And the Bronx at that time was largely in these neighborhoods, Jewish, Italian, Irish. So this first poem is called Diamonds. And it's the closest I come to it being a real historical person. Diamonds. The wife of the bitter old man plunges her fat arms in the pickle barrels, her gold rings glittering in the brine. Neighbors wait on line in the alley to cough up money for their share, pickles nudging each other like zeppelins, captured by her hands in cloudy salt water. As they wait, the women gossip of her feuds with sisters, cousins, and wastrel sons, her husband's betrayals and gambling debts, how she thinks she's better than them with her velvet sofa, embroidered sheets, and overscrubbed floors, scolding her children and counting her silver spoons, cash in the mattress, and pancake makeup on her bruises. She grins angrily as she works, listening to their laughter, taking her money from them one by one, knowing that on her swollen fingers, the brine washes her diamonds clean. So, something I think I was thinking about is how people who are in these, sort of poverty-stricken, difficult situations struggle for a sense of agency. So this next poem is kind of about it, and it's about that idea, and it's called The Town Pump. And you may know who the town pump is in a community. As they push her down, she's found her element, leaning back as it spreads like pond ripples or a flood-like surging that pulls her legs apart. They mock her. Their groping can hurt. She knows the names they call her, laughing at her gasps. But she's learned her grip masters them as they clutch hard, faces breaking open in an astonishment of need, forgotten as soon as they button up. But they can't take it away from her, thrumming in her limbs as she straightens her dress and follows them out. The next poem is called Matins, also from the same series, and it's sort of a mourning hymn. Perfect in its way, wash wrung and hung, half-opened window brings light and air. On the fire escape, strips from old shirts bind tomatoes to trellis. City distant and blue, water towers and bridges, pigeons circling shadows sweep over the roofs. Her kitchen spotless, gray wood floorboards scrubbed hard with lye, the icebox full of milk and groceries, children still asleep, husband gone to work. She lifts the window sash, leaning into the wind. And the last poem that I'm going to read from this series is called The Shabbos Goy. And if you remember, or the Shabbos, if you are a very observant Jewish person, you're not supposed to do anything at all on the Sabbath. But people will cheat by getting, the neighbor's kid who wasn't Jewish to do stuff for you. So, the Shabbos Goy, he, crosser of boundaries, forbidden bringer of light, you, passing him quietly on the staircase, great dark eyes and braided hair, woolen stockings, your older cousin's dress, in sharp cold, hurrying with the groceries after darkness falls. You shiver a second by an oaken door where old men rattle their prayers upward, unraveling the word. Streetcars clang, flocks of crows on a wire, angry black coats in a smoky room, and fierce barking dogs past shuttered shops, the last 10 blocks from the butcher's, where the meat must die on its knees, drained of blood, a string-wrapped packet, liver and offal cheap if you can boil it enough. The redhead smells of forbidden tastes. He lights your mother's stove and lopes, whistling down the stairs. Okay, the next two poems I'm going to read have to do with music. And this one is called the Robert Johnson Blues. Remember Robert Johnson, who met the devil at the crossroads to become the greatest blues musician. But personally, I don't think he met the devil. I think he met Elegua, who is the Orisha of Crossroads, a god who came from Africa, along with the folks who were forced to leave Africa. And he's the god of he's the Orisha of the Crossroads and also of new enterprises, of going through new open doorways. Robert Johnson Blues. The stranger left him, where dirt roads converge in cornfields under aching blue sky. Or maybe he was ridden by a god who set his fingers ablaze, spraying fiery cords until he stumbled, thrown whiplashed into waters where the drowned and beaten dead watch silently for payback. Who could imagine the song that breached into the air from such sorrow? The place where ancestors drag their unbearable burdens, one foot in front of another on cracked earth, always planting seeds in the drought and ruthless sun that blazes down to break you. Burnt cotton and calico, piecing together the buried story of flight and taking wing, despite the baying hounds and the side-armed agents of the company's store. Walk past, averting your eyes, their voices like tar and oiled steel. Hang your head, they could kill you for less. And the red light, midnight, broken glass, and hot, hard liquor, the dead swing in the trees on the other side of the tracks, moans the bottleneck slide. As couples in cheap finery and worn down shoes dance laughing. Who could imagine taking the bitter, dry goods of lives so charred and scrimped together, and yet so full of power to wring such music from it? This is a little different. Are there any Grateful Dead fans in the house? Maybe. Oh, okay. So this one is for the Grateful. I was a Grateful Dead head as a kid. And this one is called Walk Me Out in the Morning Dew, live at the Spectrum, April 6th, 1982. And it starts in the Como, in the parking lot in Woodstock. As a jolt of music fills the car, I set the brake and boot nudge the door open. Sirius FM, and I settle back for a moment to listen, looking from trailhead parking lot into wheeling ranges of air, the cloud-shouldered mountains, our little town tucked alongside the sloping drumlin of this hill. Recalling our teenage pretense to outlawry, ragged knee girls in our concert-going regalia, denim, trade beads, and tarnished silver, riding the late show subway to the Fillmore East. It's a familiar melody, this version from the early 80s, maybe not quite as good as the Lyceum in 72. Remembering how a tune can lift you right out of yourself. The words say it doesn't matter anyway, though the music begs to differ. Flinging sparks, twisting and rising in staccato fire above the bass line that swerves down dark roads of underground water. The lead guitar, stitching quick and clear needled through strobing brightness as the audience surges wrapped beneath the glitter ball. We've learned something about time since then and the hollowness of days. But how the music's blazing waterfall of notes falls and scatters, sings of yearning and apocalypse, shaken free across all distances by the player's wounded hand. And I'm going to finish with 2 dog poems, just because. 2 dogs. Molly said she wanted to die outside under the flickering maples. I'd been wrong about so much, but that I heard clearly. She didn't want to go in ever again. Dense, hot furniture and her claws catching in rugs as she stumbled in painful circles. I had told myself she didn't want to leave, her lean, still strong body struggling, but she was tired and blank. We returned from our last halting walk, and I felt her wanting the cool grass under the trees. So we went into the yard. She lay down, her head in my lap, and the phone call was made. I watched her rib cage rise and fall until our vet showed up in his van. I'm told Cole watched intently from the window seat, standing stiffly, his white forepaws on the sill. He stayed motionless until it was over and didn't eat for 2 days. I have a photo of him taken the next morning. He's curled on the sofa, staring hopelessly into the camera. I envied him the guiltless clarity of his grief. And this one kind of is about Molly again, but it moves a couple of years before that particular scene. And it's called The Mirror Test. And it begins with a quote from Wikipedia, which goes, "The mirror self-recognition test, MSR, is the traditional method for attempting to measure self-awareness in animals. In the classic MSR test, an animal is anesthetized and then marked, painted, or a sticker attached to an area of the body the animal cannot normally see. When the animal recovers from the anesthetic, it is given access to a mirror. If the animal then touches or investigates the mark, it is taken as an indication that the animal perceives the reflected image as itself rather than as another animal." So that's seen as a significant test of intelligence. I mean, if you give a chimpanzee a mirror and a hat, the chimpanzee will probably put the hat on, which us humans are very, very impressed by. Dogs fail this test, which is kind of unfair to somebody who navigates the world, but with using their nose first. But anyway, this poem is about that sideways. The Mirror Test. There are women in this hotel room, 3 of us, hiking pals of 20 years, our heaps of gear, and 3 respective dogs, and mice in the walls, says Molly, poking at the baseboard with an inquiring paw. The room's a bit crowded with our motley hybrid pack. We have no way of knowing it's the last big hike of Molly's long life, a weekend in Lake Placid for a scramble up Mount Joe. There's a photo of our group, triumphant at the summit, all grins and brimmed hats, panting and wagging, the high peaks flying behind us with the clouds. I'm glad to have that picture, but no camera records the moment before we leave. As I strap on my day pack, Molly sits at heel by my side as we look idly into the floor-to-ceiling mirror. She disregards her own image, the black dog in front of her, but as she notices my reflection, she stares with dawning surmise as our glances lock. Her tail thumps the floor. Her gaze asks delightedly, "How can this be?" Looking into our own reflection, we humans navigate the world. What do we find when we pause to look into other eyes? It's time to go now, into the clear, fierce air of the high country before night falls. Molly's dark eyes shine as she rises, ready to go, 4 square on 4 still strong legs. So thank you, folks.
I wish I had my. Okay, there we go. Final reader for this evening, Penelope Hyde Levine, is a potter and painter as well as a writer, and we have some of her pottery here. Wow. She curated 3 performances at Cocoon Theater, supporting poets in the musical performance of their work. And she set her own poems to music, dance, and theater. She's currently working on a book of poems entitled The Architecture That Holds Them. She graduated from Bard College, where she studied studio art, literature, and music, and edited News of Music. She worked for 31 years as a special education teacher. And I'm sorry, I put the paper up in front of me. Hey.
Yeah, I brought my pottery because my poems are animals and vegetative mass. And so it gets into my pottery too. So I thought I would bring my little menagerie. I have a lot of poems about my mother, and this one's about her too. Mending things. I have completed 11 of my mother's needlepoint projects. Some left nearly finished, others just begun. Where they found her in her garden, she had been laying out tulip bulbs. I wanted to plant the bulbs where she laid them, but my brother wanted them. Each spring, when they bloom, he sends me photos from his garden. Today, I begin mending her table linens. I trace a cup's mouth to mark a circle and stitch around and around, making a kind of lace over the hole mice had chewed. She had laundered the damaged linens and returned them carefully folded in the closet with the sheets. I found them as I emptied the closet, worn and faded. They had woven patterns, embroidered decorations, ragged holes. Some I remember from my grandmother's table. I kept them. Now I spread the cloth on my table. The lacy patch, a delicate scab, covers the mouse wound. I fold it back up, put it in the drawer with many other linens, also needing mending. And this one, I kind of have lots of, well, two different writing groups here. And they all know this poem because this poem is kicking my ass. It's in three parts. Accumulations. 1, logic in the house. So many small, necessary objects stowed away into the body of a house. Barrettes in a box on my dresser, paper clips in the desk drawer, Band-Aids. Even after the construction, when we screwed pegboards into the new garage's cement walls and hung everything in clear visual array, cleaned and arranged furniture to fit the new spaces, still my body would go to where things were once kept, tools on shelves in the laundry room, now a hallway. When I needed the vacuum's floor attachment, I would go to the place I used to keep it, but it was no longer there. Who would take the floor attachment? Eventually, months later, with more sorting and cleaning, I'd uncover it. 2, the attic. Last year, I burned piles of canceled checks from back before I was a mother, from back when I paid all the bills with checks, from back when the bank returned the canceled checks. I watched their charred edges curl and flame. They were so densely stacked, I kept stirring the fire so they would burn. Watched a time when I bought groceries from the old IGA go up in flames. I have kept all my writing in every version. Old art supplies, my mother's clothing, my grandfather's photos. Who are those people? Will my children want photos of their great-grandparents, their great-great-grandparents? Will they want the old toys I have kept for them in bins in the attic? Will their unborn children? Why didn't I get rid of them? And their storybooks? I want a child to sit on my lap, listening again to the stories I read so many times. We memorized them. 3, wild mess. Locust trees sprout in the driveway gravel. Wild rose, raspberry bushes, and redbud grow tall in the flower beds. Wisteria tendrils reach for the roof. Always there is more than I can get to. Today I attack the forsythia hedge. It has taken over the path and made a bridge for bittersweet to crawl over the viburnum, planted over 30 years ago by my mother. Each spring it covers itself with clusters of white blossoms. I unstrangle it, pull at lopped vines, scatter leaf litter and twigs across the lawn, rake them into piles, and balance load after load across the lawn to the compost. I like to imagine the yard without my weeding and chopping, the house crowded with black walnuts covered in wisteria and grapevines, the driveway a grove of locusts, forsythia pressing at the windows, and the creatures hiding there, ticks, crickets, garter snakes, turtles, mice, deer, turkeys, and the songbirds, fox, coyote, and bobcat. I gather the tools and stow them in the shed. A catbird chatters at me from the roof. Unbroken lines for Ben. All of Germany was dark and filled with ghosts, our daughter not yet conceived, when I went with you to gather the death certificates of your cousins in Frankfurt, all dead from heart attacks in Auschwitz. Your father died suddenly when you were 9, leaving your mother to tend their store. Then your sister, who mostly raised you, died 2 years later. In the photo of her, she has a thick blonde braid, mischievous eyes. She went to college at 15, picketed for radical causes, and taught you how to escape Brooklyn street dangers. At 17, she hitchhiked across the country. In the Midwest, she and her friend jumped out of a moving pickup truck to escape the boys who drove. She hit her head and died. Your pain has lodged in our daughter's body. At 17, in turn, she flipped her car, injured her head. 3 years later, in a biking accident, an SUV rolled over her back, bursting 3 vertebrae. Also blonde, she now is becoming the psychologist your sister had wanted to be. When you almost died, I thought of the pain I've carried for you through 30 years apart. What will I do with it when you die? It won't be buried or burned. Always you have had to escape, leaving me to carry our love and failure. Immutable. What will I do with it?
I think you need to speak up a little bit.
Okay, okay, I'll try. Yeah, sorry. Madame Rocha. I want to smell my mother's perfume again. Madame Rocha, the one she wore when I was little. My husband hunts, finds it for me, its original formulation on eBay. The scent my mother wore in the 60s. Yellowed label, a small bottle, elegant. I peel off the Scotch tape sealing the top. Only a little is missing. I dab some on my wrist, wait for the alcohol to evaporate, wait for the scent to mix with my own chemistry, merge with it, as it merged with my mother's musk and sweat. I press my nose to my wrist. It smells warm, a faint scent of something almost like cinnamon. That scent I must have known from my head snug in the curve of her neck after nursing. Later, when I'd watch her dress up for an evening out with my father, she'd scrunch up her stockings, pull them small tugs at a time over her foot, ankle, calf, and thigh, her long, smooth leg. And the gesture of tipping the perfume bottle to her wrist, then rubbing that wrist against the other, her hands open, swan-like, a touch to her neck behind each ear. Then drawing the bright red lipstick carefully on the top lip, then the lower, and pressing her lips together, watching in the mirror, tipping her head to each side critically. Finally, she'd slip on her high heels, their crisp click on the wooden floors. At the closed door, panic, I didn't know she would return as I slept and be there standing at the kitchen counter for breakfast. The smell of the perfume on me lingers in the room as if she was just here. And then I have 3 more poems. The next 2 poems I kind of consider to be my political poems. The Hotel. They are going to build a 60-bed hotel in the wild land behind our house. They must record and report to the town how many trees larger than 6 inches in diameter they will fell to clear the land. Gardening, I see wild turkeys, fox, rabbits, deer. At night, I hear owls calling. In the woods, pileated woodpeckers. And yesterday, a scarlet tanager, red-black, streak through the trees. A bear in our garbage this spring. Last year, while I decorated bisque pots sitting on my terrace, my cat in my lap, an adult bobcat walked calmly past us. He caught and ate a young woodchuck at the end of the lawn where it meets the woods. Yesterday, as I was dumping compost, a bobcat kitten, just a few feet from me, looked up and stepped gingerly past. Today, the wind is in the trees, the rustle of it. It is almost August. The cicadas have begun their chorus. When I turn into the driveway, I see the black-eyed Susans climbing the hill to the front door. Hope is an eschatological blessing. I think of Akhmatova, who waited 17 months in lines outside Leningrad prisons to hear news of her son. The woman behind, her lips blue in the cold, whispered, "Can you describe this?" She said, "I can." If I am afraid, I think of the trees. Even the trees standing around the people forced to dig a mass grave, undress, and wait naked, each one, to be shot. The soldiers' film of that. The trees all around, silently witnessing. I live in a house with many windows, and this is a blessing, the way the light pours into different rooms at different times. The kitchen on the afternoon of the equinox, the yellow couch glowing. Outside, spring unfolds. I am learning Spanish a little each day. El árbol, la luz. Perhaps I can hide someone, even a whole family, in my house. Each day, a few more words. And this is my last one.
Really?
Barely, sorry, actually. Undeserved gifts. In the line at Walgreens, I heard the checkout girl talking. He was seen on Love Lane, she was telling the guy in front of me. I thought, I want to see that moose. I'm at our parents' house, preparing to sell it, struggling to uproot a wayward rose bush, when he appears to me. Gangly legs, a juvenile, running in a bit of a panic through our front yard, just feet from me. Large, So large, massive. A moose, a moose. I call to my children in the house. We know, I hear from our neighbor's yard, and the police appear from around the bushes. I stand there looking at them in some confusion. He's healthy, they say. Continue after him. I have watched loons floating on the bay, cormorants drying their wings on buoys, winter seals out on the tidal rock island sunning and diving. From the kitchen window, I saw a baby fox practicing being fierce. Voles were everywhere the September after Mom died. Butterflies in the meadow. And now a moose. And I just wanted to say thank you, Judy. This has been a really wonderful week. And thank you, Bob and Leslie and my other writing group people so much.